I don't always like publicizing our research. A lot of this is proprietary. We pay a lot of money for this data, and frankly, it's no one else's business. But did you know, I just got handed this earlier today by Jesse, did you guys know that out of our audience, 100% of our audience members were fathered by a dad? And so on this Father's Day, I got to thank the fathers out there. You are quite literally responsible for the entirety of our viewership. And you know what? For that matter, I said the same thing on Mother's Day. So if you take mothers and fathers combined, it could create an incredible audience. And that's what the fathers and mothers have done for us. And as the son of a father and the son of a mother, I appreciate both. So thank you guys so much. We're jam-packed. We're high atop a sunny downtown Nashville, Tennessee. Can't say the same for everywhere else in the country. Boy, will we talk about that later. But we're jam-packed with college football on the front end. Frankly, I was supposed to get to the other night, but we had to cut the show short because we were going long. That's mainly on Jesse. All that plus at the end of the show, we had our best storm chase of the year, Wednesday. And I am going to wait until the end because some of you don't care about that. Many, many of you do. So I'm going to put it at the very end of the show. What a story I have to tell you. They're watching us in Anderson, South Carolina, Peoria, Illinois, Reno, Nevada, Tallahassee, Florida. Please subscribe to the channel. If you have not already, it's great that you watch. Really, I appreciate that most. But if you're here and you're not already subbed, please do so because it doesn't change anything for you. It doesn't cost you anything. And if you think you're subbed, that's great. Do the added favor for us of making sure you're subscribed. Let's dive into tonight's show. Man, there's a lot of stuff coming up, by the way. Just some stuff happening with the show behind the scenes. It has to do with this upcoming season. I think it's going to be our best season ever. And a lot of wheels in motion right now, thanks to you guys. So you'll see in due time. When I can tell you, I will tell you. Here's what I can tell you right now. Bradley, here's your good endpoint. I hold in my hand, as best I can tell, a ranking of all the SEC head coaches, at least the top 10 going into 2026. Now, the way you could do this is you could do it predictively. You could say, these are the guys I think will be the best over the next 3 years. Or you could do like, oh, I'm running my own university. This is an order of the coaches I would hire and the order I would hire them in. But I didn't want to go that route. I just do criteria I value, pretty basic stuff, relative on-field performance and talent acquisition. And then if there's like a tiebreaker, just the et cetera, just the wild card stuff that I happen to value. I just throw all that in a blender. I heavily yield towards recency. So like if you did something in 2016 and 17 and you did something in 24 and 25, I care a lot more about 24 and 25, all due respect to what you did 10 years ago. And frankly, most of these guys weren't head coaches 10 years ago anyway. That leads me to number one, a guy who became a head coach about a decade or so ago. Kirby Smart is the number one head coach in the SEC. Pretty cut and dry here. Back-to-back SEC champs. He was in the game 3 years ago. There is no current head coach in the SEC that has beaten that guy in Atlanta. There's no current SEC head coach that's beaten him for a conference title. Saban was the last one to do it. Saban works for ESPN now. He has been also the best recruiter in the country over the past 4 years blended. So not only is he getting the talent, he's developing the talent, he's won with the talent. Also, just the edge that program has about it. You either get beat by them, or if you do beat them, you got to do everything right to beat them. So Kirby Smart's been the model of consistency. And mind you, he has also existed now 20 teens into the mid-2020s. He's existed in that era where a whole lot's changed. But one thing that's remained pretty consistent is that block G means you have your hands full. Kirby Smart, number one. I think number two is going to be controversial because I've got Kalen DeBoer, number two. It may be different if we did predictive. It may be. I think you got to put DeBoer as the number two head coach in the SEC right now if I'm valuing on-field results recently, talent acquisition recently. You've got his Washington year and his first 2 years at Bama. His first 2 years at Bama have consisted of a couple of highly ranked recruiting classes, both of them top 6. He's 2-1 versus Kirby Smart in the 3 times they've played since he's been at Alabama. He played Sark 3 years ago. He beat him in the playoffs. So there's some head-to-head results here. with these other top guys that he's got. He's acquired talent at Alabama. The only knock on him is they've fallen off slightly from what was the number one program in the country, but they still made the playoff last year. So, like, a lot of people will push back on this, but I think what you'll be pushing back on is you'll be saying, oh, I think Bama's fallen off. I think this, I think that. If you're right, then the next 3 years will show that. But if I'm working with what I've seen and I'm doing it comparatively, I think DeBoer's got to be all the way up at number 2. Then I'd put Sark behind him. So I'd have Steve Sarkisian. I'd have Sark as the number 3 head coach in the SEC currently. You know what Texas feels like? It feels like if you take a 2-liter bottle of soda, because no drink company is paid to sponsor the show, hint, hint, and you shake that 2-liter up, and then you just slightly twist the top. You know, where you start to hear that and maybe some bubbles start to come out, but it hasn't exploded yet. That's Texas to me. They are 12 wins, 13 wins, 10 wins the last 3 years. Of course, now and moving forward, they feel like the top talent acquirer in the SEC, maybe even in the country. So they've got limitless resources, and it's not like they're getting the talent and not doing anything with it. They're just not quite getting to the mountaintop. But it feels like they're close, but that's predictive. As for the here and now, I think it's a really solid culture. He keeps upgrading his staff, too. So he's leaving no stone unturned, and they're doing all the right things. It's just, reaching the belt, reaching the mountaintop, reaching the summit, popping the top off the 2-liter, and just letting the stuff explode all over the place. That feels like all that's left for Sark. But that's really, really high up there. He is really high up there. I'd put him at number 3. I'd stay in the state of Texas for number 4. I'd put Mike Elko as the number 4 head coach in the SEC right now. This may be a little controversial, having him in front of Lane, but he made the playoff by year 2 at Texas A&M. They've been solidly top 10 as a recruiter and as a portal team. They don't lack for resources there either. They may push for the number 1 overall class in the country per Rivals for this upcoming cycle, but the evaluation piece there, the development piece there, it's what we talked about when they went to Duke and got him. That was going to be one of the strengths of this team because it already was a strength of his. You were just going to pair that with really, really, really deep pockets. And the result, obviously, is going to be, or it should be, a championship caliber program for years to come. I think that's what they've become. They made the playoff last year. They got bounced early, but that's just another step. So Ohio State made it last year, got bounced early. That's a disappointment for them. A&M's at a different point in their trajectory than Ohio State is. So that was a big accomplishment for them last year, even if it was disappointing to get beat at home. But the organizational structure there, I think there is still a ways to go for A&M. So, I think they're trending, but already I would put Mike Elko at number 4 in the league. 5 is where I'd put Lane. So I got Lane Kiffin as the number 5 head coach in the SEC right now. Did unheard of things at Ole Miss. 11 wins, 10 wins, 13 wins in his last 3 years. Obviously, we know there was kind of a weird ending to last year at Ole Miss, but he was largely responsible for that. He has been very forward-thinking by necessity because they weren't quite working with the same deck at Ole Miss that maybe Texas and Sark are working with. And now he has that deck to work with, by the way, at LSU. But where is he in his career is one of the funnest questions to ask about Lane Kiffin, because Lane's not new. He's not a young head coach per se. So 30 years from now, when you look at 2026, his first year at LSU, you could be saying during the documentary, Lane went to LSU towards the end of his career, and there were those few years at LSU, but largely the book was already written on him, as it turns out. Or you could find yourself saying Lane was already well into his head coaching career, but it really didn't scale. He really didn't become ultimately the Lane Kiffin that history will remember until he took that job at LSU. And when he took that job at LSU in 2026, unbeknownst to us at the time, there was coming a 7 or 8 or 10-year run of just utter dominance. Where is he in his career? But I'd put Lane at number 5 right now. I'd flip over the paper. I think there may be a little bit of a teardrop, so to speak, here, maybe between 5 and 6. And these next 4 names, to me, you could make arguments for putting any one of them in any one of these places. I put Clark Lee all the way up at number 6. So give me Clark Lee as the number 6 head coach in the SEC right now. Remember, I said I very, very much value on-field results. I value relative on-field results. So obviously at Vanderbilt, doing something there versus doing something of the same record at Texas means different things. So the fact that Clark had been at Vandy a few years, and then he pulled some levers. We still haven't really settled on the pronunciation there, but he made some changes. Like there was a real fork in the road moment for him a couple of years ago. There was a real inflection point a couple of years ago. And it was tough, man. I've heard him talk about it. It was really tough, but he went the direction he went. And then they won 7 games. Then they won 10 games last year. They were right on the playoff bubble last year. In that period of time, he's beaten Bama. He's beaten LSU. He's beaten Missouri. Smoked Tennessee last year. And they had 2 one-possession losses to Texas during that run. Any one of those things used to be noteworthy for Vandy over a rolling 3-year stretch. And they've done all of those things within a 2-year stretch. They just landed the number 1 quarterback in the country, by the way. So that's how the next few years of Vanderbilt football will look. I think it's remarkable what he's done. And I'm not saying there are a lot of detractors of Clark Lee, but if there is someone who wants to be a detractor, what they would tell you is they get close to you and they'd whisper, well, yeah, but I mean, it's not so much Clark. It's maybe the people he's hired, or, maybe it was Diego Pavia. And to those people, I look and I say, yeah, so what you're describing is a really good head coach. You're telling me he surrounded himself with good players and good people? That's the mark of a good leader. That's what Kirby Smart does. That's what Sark does. That's what Elko does. Like, those guys aren't doing it solo. No one's doing it solo. So I'd put Clark Lee at 6. I'd put Eli Drinkwitz at number 7. 11 wins, 10 wins, 8 wins over the last few years. Now, fairly, you could say, isn't that a downward trend? Well, yes, numerically it is. And maybe it continues that way. And we will adjust the rankings in the future if that is so. But see, Missouri's in a different place. Missouri is not Alabama. Missouri is not even like Florida or Texas and Texas A&M currently, or certainly. They are more likely to be poached than they are to poach. He's lost, he being Eli Drinkwitz. Drink has lost several high-level assistant coaches. He's lost players. Now, he went and got Austin Simmons, so it's not like it's been strictly a one-way lane out of there. He has had some guys come in, but unlike these other guys outside of Clark Lee that have been listed before him, those top 5, those are places where they're just taking pretty much whatever they want. That's not the case for Eli Drinkwitz. And so it's all relative, and I do wonder the commitment level, the resource level. Like, it's not a poverty program or anything like that. But if you're ever trying to elevate in the SEC, you've got your haves, and no one thinks they're a have-not in the SEC, which just means you have to recalibrate the entire column, if you will, because someone's got to be 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, or however many teams there are down there now. Like, where is Missouri ultimately going to settle on that, I think is my question, more so than it's a question about Drink. I have Brent Venables number 8. Brent Venables is the toughest guy to nail down on this. He could rank higher, he could rank lower, because if I'm looking at this and I'm saying, hey, I value a rolling blend of, among other things, on-field results over the past 4 years. Well, how do you blend 6-7, 10-3, 6-7, 10-3? It's almost like if you close your eyes and you point and you land on one of the 10-3 years, like last year they made the playoff, boy, he belongs higher than 8, right? But in any one of those 10-win seasons right before it, there was a 6-win season. And if you believe in patterns forming, 6-10, 6-10, guess what's next? We don't know because there's just a question mark there. Bradley didn't write 6-7. We're not predicting for this year, but they've been a top 15 recruiter, again, on average, just rolling blend there. One thing I'll say about Brent Venables is he can talk and coach defense, and he turned the identity of that place around. Because remember how sad it was, depending on your perspective, to watch Oklahoma go to the playoffs under Lincoln Riley but be unable to stop molasses in December, as Meemaw would say. There was no toughness to speak of. There was no defense to speak of. And he came in there and turned that around virtually overnight. And the results have been mixed, but again, they're coming off a playoff year. And so I would put Brent Venables number 8. I'd put Josh Heupel number 9. Josh Heupel, I think, enters this whole equation with a big caveat that entered the equation last year. So last year around this time, that was when Nico had left. And they were coming off a playoff appearance, and they were going to try and gear up for another run at it. And then they lost their starting quarterback. Now, it's not like Nico Iamaleava was destined for a Heisman winning season or anything like that. I'm not suggesting that. But I remember at the time, they added Joey Aguilar at the 11th hour, and some Tennessee fans tried to paint it as, oh, we upgraded. No, you didn't. No one wanted that. But it was the hand you were dealt. He handled it the right way. They did the best they could. I thought that's why them winning 8 games last year, close game against Georgia, could have been maybe a different result. I thought it was, all things considered, a success because it could have been a disaster. Like losing your quarterback after spring could have been a disaster. But that's where the caveat is, because how am I supposed to judge that? Because on the surface, 8 wins doesn't look all that great. But then when you add in the Nico factor, and then you get to this year, and no, we're not doing predictive here, but this year it could be George McIntyre, it could be Faison Brandon. If it is Faison Brandon, that's quarterback of the future, but he'd be a freshman starting. So is it a bridge year? It's kind of a weird spot, and he's 6 years in. They haven't gone to Atlanta to play for the conference title. They've been to the playoff once. They got blown out. But also Tennessee was in the gutter for a long time, and he pulled them out. And so I'm not putting him top 5, but I think if you're talking 6 through 10, especially the number 9 spot, considering what Heupel's done there and considering the hand they were dealt last year, I think that's fair. Number 10, a lot of guys we haven't mentioned yet, Jesse. It's Summerall. This is where I put John Summerall, whose record in the SEC is 0-0 thus far. The million-dollar question is, where do these guys enter the league? At what spot do they enter the league? And you could look at it one of two ways. You could look at it and say it's impossible. Like everybody who is a new head coach is just tied for last until they've accomplished something. Fair. I don't choose to do it that way. So I think the guy going 12-2 and 11-2 at Troy, and then 9-5 and 11-3 at Tulane, making the playoffs at Tulane, 43-12 as a head coach so far, and then taking the Florida Gators job and injecting the kind of attitude and DNA into that place that I know he will. I think his current existence is that of a top 10 SEC head coach. And it's up to him to prove me right. If anything, I think that we should be thanked for putting John Summerall top 10, and it's up to him to not embarrass us. So I would put him there, and that's my top 10. There's no honorable mention. Again, to everyone ranked top 10, prove me right. To everyone not ranked top 10, prove me wrong. That's it. That's all. Moving on. Bill Connelly visited the studio recently, and we had a very, very long-form sit-down with Bill, and it was fun times for us all. It's the first time that we had ever had him on the show. So then he went back to Columbia, Missouri, doing whatever it is he does up there. Well, as it turns out, what he does up there is type Big Ten manifestos. Because this thing that he just uploaded on ESPN.com, Jesse, if it was in paper, it would have, half the Amazon would have needed to be used on this thing. It was lengthy. Luckily, it's the World Wide Web. Space is pretty unlimited there. So we're perusing through this piece that Bill Connelly put up about just Big Ten storylines. And since it's June, a lot of times we get inspired by the ideas of others. And so we're reading through Bill's work, and I said, actually Jesse said, why don't we just come up with our Big Ten storylines? So we did. And this is your endpoint, Bradley. Let's take a look at some Big Ten storylines this year, shall we? It's June, just looking out over the horizon. The season's still a couple months away. Where will our minds be this year? Well, to me, you got to start at the quarterback position and these returning quarterbacks that we hope will level up. Think Julian Sayin at Ohio State. Think Dante Moore at Oregon. Everybody in the preseason thinks that everyone who's returning will ultimately be better. That's the storybook path. Now, oftentimes that's not the case. However, it's very hard to find out or project who is and isn't going to improve. So, like, that's something from Connolly's piece right there. The total QBR for Big Ten quarterbacks. Fernando Mendoza, well, he's not there anymore. But Jaden Maiava is. So where's he going to fall in all this? What's Julian Sayin going to do? What's Dante Moore going to do? And if you go down a step, like Damon Williams thought he was going to leave Washington, but then he didn't. Nico Iamaleava, who has already been mentioned once in the show for his time at Tennessee, now at UCLA, gets a new staff in there. I don't think Nico could have ever mapped out his career like this, but he's low-key in a great position right now. Bryce Underwood is mentioned here. Like, he's involved in this. How much do those guys level up? Now, it's isolated. It's case by case. But, like, collectively, do we look at the Big Ten quarterback picture come November and say, you know what? There's been really good quarterback play in this league this year. That's one thing. Another thing, to zoom in to Los Angeles right quick, obviously, make or break year for Lincoln Riley. And this will send reverberations throughout the rest of the league one way or the other. And it'll send reverberations maybe throughout the coaching market one way or the other. So on the plus side, if Lincoln starts winning this year, well, all of a sudden USC's thrust into the college football playoff picture, and all's well and good. And then that impacts the rest of the Big Ten title picture maybe as well. And we've got another potential Tier 1 candidate at the head table. But what if it goes sideways? You remember how crazy that coaching market was last year? And how Franklin was out, and Billy Napier was out, and Hugh Freeze was out, and these big moves were being made during the season. Sharon Moore's thing happened too. So a lot of head coaches got fired last year, dominated the headlines. Well, if you're looking for those candidates this year, one of them, if it goes south at USC, would be Lincoln Riley. And if that job came open, then that'd be a tidal wave throughout the coaching industry, because it is still a very, very desirable job. So since I have predicted success for Lincoln Riley eventually, I am pulling for the former rather than the latter. But it's a make or break year, and I've gone over this a million times. But since it's only June, I need to prepare myself. It's not even Big Ten Media Days yet, so I need to prepare to say it at least a million more times. It's a make or break year for him. I think he's got to make the playoffs. How about the Tier 1 teams? Speaking of which, USC hasn't been a Tier 1 team. Maybe they become one this year. How vulnerable are these teams? So the hallmark of the Big Ten recently has been a very, very well-defined Tier 1. And it's your Ohio States and your Indianas and your Oregons and Michigan a couple of years ago, but more recently, those three teams. And then there's a cutoff. Listen to this. Paper popper stat in June. Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon. The rest of the Big Ten versus those three teams over the past 2 years, a combined 1-48. You want parity, go somewhere else. Because at the top, the Big Ten has been as clearly defined. There has been as clear a separation in tiers in the Big Ten as any major conference in America. And Nebraska hasn't been able to get it done. And Iowa hasn't been able to get it done. Wisconsin, like Washington, those teams haven't broken through. So the first question is, how vulnerable might those three teams be this year? And then the second thing is that Tier 1? Or does Michigan surprise? Does Penn State surprise? Like we said, does USC surprise? Does someone come from out of nowhere? Or if someone doesn't come from out of nowhere to join Tier 1, that's okay. Is someone a giant killer? Does someone or a pair of someone's maybe pull some upsets this year? Because it just hasn't been the nature of the Big Ten. Who hit in the portal? That's a very good question. And specifically at the quarterback position, like who hit there? So Indiana obviously is the focal point when you're talking portal, quarterbacks. You just watch Fernando Mendoza create magic in Bloomington, and then he's the number 1 overall pick in the draft. I felt like that was about the time people started honing in on the fact that, wait a minute, if he's leaving and they just won the national title, who'd they go get? And then you Google, well, who will Indiana's quarterback be? And then you found out they got Josh Hoover from TCU. Okay, so that's a massive question. And then also, Indiana is not like classically built on this stack of pancakes that's multiple top 10 recruiting classes. So obviously, I watched like all of you did last year, and I'm going to trust Kurt Signetti's evaluations over that of the recruiting industry. So it's not like I think he's got, some roster full of nomads. However, They signed a highly ranked portal class, and we're counting on a lot of those pieces to just pull right in the garage with those spots that just got emptied by guys that pulled out and went on to the NFL. And that if they nailed it, they nailed it. And if there's one guy I'd bet on right now to be Curt Cignetti, but you got to watch that. You got to say the same thing about Penn State. Matt Campbell going over there, taking a lot of his guys with him, Rocco Becht being one of those. Rocco Becht's played a lot of college football. Now, what kind of level is he going to play at in the Big Ten? Aiden Childs is still around. He's at Northwestern right now. You think about a lot of the movement, like Anthony or Calandria going to Nebraska. Just thinking you've got Kenny Minchey, and then Kenny Minchey going to Kentucky and then doing an interview. I saw him do an interview, I think, with Nakos the other day and said, I am slam dunk. Oh, it's no doubt. There were some doubts. Let's just be real. There were some doubts, but he broke Will Compton's heart and the rest of Nebraska. And then they got Anthony Calandria, and now everyone in Lincoln saying, we think we got the better end of this deal anyway. So, yeah, UCLA also, again, just kind of not so much at the quarterback position, but Bob Chesney coming out there, bringing a lot of his guys from JMU with him. Just it's a big underlying story in the Big Ten. And my favorite part of the Big Ten this year is the schedule, because the schedule's way better. And we were looking again at Bill Connolly talking about kind of the biggest games in the Big Ten this year. And some of the circle games here are the same ones everyone would have. You got USC at Penn State, potentially a night game if there's any justice in the world. Ohio State plays Indiana on the road. Indiana goes to Michigan. Oregon comes to Columbus to play Ohio State. Indiana goes to Washington late in the year. We didn't even have room for Ohio State at USC. We got Oregon at USC a little bit earlier in the year. Of course, Michigan goes to Ohio State. Just a delicious year in the Big Ten, Jesse. A delicious year. But it would be nice, as speaking outside the conference footprint for a second, it would be nice if there was maybe a little cross-pollination at the top, or maybe some new blood at the top. And that doesn't mean Indiana has to go anywhere. I would just like to all of a sudden have Indiana look to the left or right and someone pulls up alongside you and is that Lincoln Riley? Hey, that would be nice. That would be nice, just speaking generically. It's Father's Day for 5 or 6 more hours. And many of you took advantage of the fact that the Pate State Dad line is just readily available there in the Pate State store, which is accessible at patestatematerial.com. And at the stroke of midnight tonight, it is a fact that Father's Day will end. However, if you are a father right now, you will also be a father tomorrow morning, which means the Pate State Dad hat or shirt will be just as relevant next week as it is tonight. So if you're thinking, oh, it's too late, I got to wait till next year. Who said that? Nobody said that. Go buy it right now. It's fine. No one will think less of you. In fact, we will think more highly of you. Theoretically, as will your dad. PateStateMaterial.com. We had a good question. Actually, we had tons of good questions in the inbox. This was just one of them. We had a long debate about whether Darkhorse should be one word or two today. I think it should be one word, even if everything else says that it's supposed to be 2 words. I just differ with whoever created the English language on this. And since it's our show, we can do whatever we want. Anyway, James from Seattle said, who are some dark horse teams in each conference this year? James, I got 4 of them. And as you asked for, 1 from each conference. Give me Oklahoma State in the Big 12. You wanted dark horse. It can't possibly have been darker in Stillwater, Oklahoma. They are, wait for it, again, I popped the paper for a reason. You know what? Let me ask the audience there. Last 21 games, what would you venture to guess Oklahoma State's combined record is? If you said 1-20, you are correct. That is what got Mike Gundy fired. 1-20 over the last 21 games. So what did they do? Well, they went and they looked across the G5 landscape, as everyone's doing these days, and they said, where's the best head coach and best offense that we can import? And they looked down in Denton, Texas, at North Texas, and they saw, well, Eric Morris is there. He's really good. The Mestamaker kid, man. That Drew kid at quarterback, he looks good too. Bring them on. It's like picking up hitchhikers at this point. Bring them all. North Texas was number 1 in points per game last year. They hung 45 or more 9 times. Mestamaker is a legit future NFL guy, and Oklahoma State had the 130th scoring offense in the country last year. So they're a dark horse. Their over-under win total's 5.5 at FanDuel right now. Yes, they can make some noise. Let's move on to the SEC. This is Big 12 odds Bradley put up there. That's brutal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9th, Oklahoma State. 9th in the Big 12 right now. Nowhere to go but up. Yeah, man, Baylor's got the former SEC number 1 preseason quarterback in there at 11th in the odds. That can't be right. Call FanDuel, Mike. That can't be right. All right, moving on to the SEC. It's Auburn. Auburn's the dark horse in the SEC. So similar vibes to Oklahoma State. I don't think they want me to have said that down there on the plains. I don't mean, even at your worst, that you've been as bad as Oklahoma State. I mean, in terms of having your head coaching spot vacated and what you were looking for, you went the same route as Oklahoma State. You found a really, really high caliber G5 head coach in Alex Golish that was ready for the big time. He brought a lot of his guys with him. USF was number 3 in total offense last year. And defense at Auburn was already good. It may be better this year than it was last year. They kept DJ Durkin as defensive coordinator. So the thing about Auburn was the offense was horrible, and they're going to go from 99th in passing yards per game last year to what? Under Byron Brown or with Byron Brown. How high will they jump? Obviously, they'll be better than 99th, but Byron Brown's scalability, his production's scalability, that's the only thing in question here. Jeremiah Cobb's a bell cow of a running back. They've got 5 new offensive linemen, but again, a lot of these stats about returning starters can be deceptive when you have a new head coach coming in. So, Auburn does have the minimum baseline talent roster where they could surprise some people this year. It is time. We have had an inordinate amount of people demand that I talk about a certain team. They have claimed, Jesse, that we've been ignoring this certain team. It's not Auburn. It's an ACC team. And there have been some rumors out there that we've turned a cold shoulder towards this team, that we're anti this team. And none of those things are true, and I'm going to prove it right now. Cal is my dark horse in the ACC. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Taj Lupoi's Cal Golden Bears. That would be the dark horse there. They are a plus candidate quarterback. It's the toughest name to pronounce of the major college quarterbacks this year. However, it may be that they have the number 2 quarterback in the league. Mensa would be my number 1 preseason at least. But after that, where are we looking? Now, obviously, Rhett Lashley has already clipped this, and he will have sent it to Kevin Jennings by the time the show ends. That's fine. Kevin Jennings is way up there. All I'm saying is there's not like a slam dunk that we put Cal behind at the quarterback position. So if you've got a quarterback, you got a chance, as Meemaw would always say. Now, the second thing I need you to know about Cal is it's not exactly a murderer's row that they're asking to walk here. They face UCLA in week 1, which is great, by the way. 2 new head coaches there. They play some dude named Wagner in week 3. And then they do not play Miami. They do not play Louisville. They do not play Georgia Tech. They're losing a bunch on D. Again, that can be deceptive. Taj Lupoi is a former defensive coordinator who's taken over as head coach. And when I've got a guy who specializes on a side of the ball, and then there's a lot of newness on his side of the ball, that's a gamble I'm willing to take because it's a low-risk roll of the dice here. We're looking for dark horses. We're not picking the conference winner. And to go down the coast a little bit in the Big Ten, this one's easy. The Big Ten sleeper is easy, so much so that I don't want to say it loud. But I'm big on UCLA this year and beyond. I'm big on UCLA's potential this year, and I'm absolutely big on their potential as a program as long as Bob Chesney's there. They just brought in the number 11 portal class. They got 42 new guys there. That staff inheriting Nico Iamaleava is the biggest blessing that Nico Iamaleava could have never even known to pray for. Like leaving Knoxville, he had no clue what he was walking into, and he never could have known this was going to be the situation he was in 2 years later. Got good weapons they brought over from JMU. There's no Ohio State on the schedule. There's no Indiana on the schedule. And I am telling you, in this post-Kurt Cignetti Indiana world that we live in now, I'm not going to be the dude that constantly tries to find the next Indiana. But what I'm also not going to be is shocked if someone starts to look similar to the way they have in Indiana because they've got similar ingredients. In this case, the guy came from the same school that Kurt Cignetti came from. So I think UCLA bears close watching this year and in years to come. We move on. Good pace tonight. More whale breaches than I would like. Do we need to explain? Yeah, let's explain. So sometimes my nasal passages are as clear as can be, and we have a breach-free show. However, other times, as you'll notice, there's no one else on the set here. It's just me. So, like, I can't toss to someone and then press the mute button over here and clear my throat. I can't tell them to take the camera off of me and... So sometimes you just got to do it on the fly. And the way that I clear my throat/nasal passages sounds like this. And one of the viewers a long time ago said they were listening on podcasts so they couldn't see. They said, why does it sound like a whale breach keeps happening? You've seen whales. And when they surface, it's just... And then they go back down. And apparently me just quickly clearing the nasal passages sounds very similar to a whale breach. I've never been whale spotting. Maybe it's on the to-do list. July activities, perhaps. Is it whale season, Jesse? I mean, they live 12 months out of the year. That's a fact. I don't know that they breach 12 months out of the year. Biology would say you need oxygen 12 months out of the year. Anyway, I breach 12 months out of the year. So there you go. So if you're curious, if you're new to the show and you wonder what the sound is, am I okay? No, I'm not okay. I'm just trying to draw breath. I'm just trying to get us to the truth about Dabo, because that's next up on the old rundown here. We have been doing the Truth Teller series, trying to tell the truth as best we know how about people, places, things, sometimes in college football. And tonight, it came as a great shock to me to realize we haven't done the truth about Dabo Swinney. All the times we talked Dabo and Clemson, and we haven't done the truth about Dabo. Well, let's do it then. Well, what is the truth about Dabo? Feels like there are multiple truths. What is the plural of truth? Try? I don't know. Anyway, I don't think I could say it in one sentence. So here's what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to try and compartmentalize the Dabo truths. Truth number one, unequivocally, Dabo's legacy is set. Dabo could go 0-12 this year, and he would be the face of Clemson football for multiple generations. He is Clemson football. He totally redefined what that tiger paw means. And so he is an icon. He is a legend. He won multiple national championships against the biggest superpower and number one head coach this sport has ever seen. And he's the only one that went toe-to-toe with him. So that is a truth that's undeniable, no matter what happens now and moving forward. Then there's another truth that they've dropped off recently. They haven't fallen off a cliff, but they've swerved a little bit. Double-digit wins every year from 2011 to 2022. We call that a sweet spot. And then the last 3 years, they've won 9 games, they won 10 games, and then they won 7 last year. Again, didn't fall off a cliff. They're just off the Clemson pace a little bit. They've got 14 losses the last 3 years. That is as many as the previous 8 years combined, I think. So yes, it's not, again, they didn't crater into the side of a mountain, but they've fallen off a little bit. Now, here's what I do not advise you to do. I do not advise you to go over to Clemson, South Carolina, hang out with Dabo, and tell him he's fallen off, because I've done it. And let me tell you what Dabo does. He does not need to pull up his phone or pull a index card out of his back pocket. He's got it all up here, and he will rattle off every statistic known to man that proves they've still been the class of the ACC over the last several years, even if they didn't win it last year. And I don't think he's wrong. It's all about the perspective you have. So I'm just going to give you my perspective. My perspective is that guy created a standard far above and beyond just being the best team in the ACC over a rolling 5-year period that's heavily weighted towards the front end instead of the back end. Best is the standard, is what Dabo created at Clemson, because they were the best for a long time. And then recently, it's just the volume's turned down a little bit, and I view Clemson as the standard. The best that I've seen Clemson be, that's the standard. Not, all due respect, how they compare to Wake or how they compare to Duke or how they've compared to Virginia. I don't care about that. I care about how you compare to your vintage self. Now, in fairness, there are several instances out there of a former, top of the mountain program whose volume has turned down just a smidge. Bama did that in the latter years under Saban. Now, they were still really good. Kirby would tell you Georgia's done that. So to a certain extent, the changes in the landscape of college football have had that effect on everyone. Like no one, the best teams in America now, point blank, aren't as good as the best teams of 7 or 8 years ago. It's just that because of maybe some reluctance or resistance to lean more heavily into all of the talent acquisition avenues available to someone, maybe Clemson's disproportionately suffered a little bit from that. But then if you say that to Dabo, Dabo will tell you, hey, there's a reason I run this program the way I do. It's not about right or wrong. It's just about is. Okay, so that's the second truth. The third truth is the inflection point is here. This is kind of more opinion, but it is my opinion this is a truth. So when you go 7 and, what were they, 7-5? What was the bowl game result? 7-6, okay, 7-5 regular season last year. When you do that, and then you realize, hey, it was a miracle that we won 7 games. Those were his words, not mine. You got to make some moves. And so they did. They got rid of Garrett Riley as offensive coordinator, which was an experiment I thought would work out, and it just didn't. And they brought Chad Morris back in, kind of like they did after 2010 when they underachieved. And that's sort of what Dabo's going for. Like once upon a time, I had high expectations. I underachieved. I went and brought Chad Morris in, and we were off to the races. We're doing it again. That is the point currently where Clemson football under Dabo Swinney finds itself. They have flirted more with the portal. There'll never be a portal-reliant team. That's just not his ethos. He would quit before he had to heavily rely on the portal. But just think about this overall 2026 picture. Classic Dabo ingredients. It's the year after. They were expected to be something last year, and they weren't. And now they lost a lot of guys to the draft. And he would describe the roster as a bunch of nobodies. They are not going to be picked to finish anywhere near the top of this conference. They're not going to be picked to go to the playoffs. There will be no Heisman conversation in the preseason around their quarterback. They've been forgotten. That is Dabo Swinney's sweet spot. Everyone else who's normal would listen to what I just said and pack it up and go home. Dabo Swinney just pulls out of the driveway with a giant smile on his face every morning. He's like, people think we suck? No expectations, you say? Love it. Love it. I'll show up 30 minutes earlier to work than I normally would. So it's a complicated truth because there are multiple truths. I guess it's, you know what it's like, Jesse? It's like a supercell. It really depends on the angle you're looking at it from. You could be looking at it from the north, just a big blob of rain. You could be looking at it from the west, and, well, here it comes. Still can't quite make it out. You could be looking at it from the south, EF4 wedge on the ground. It just really depends. There are multiple truths. But at its core, there's a here and now. And the here and now is 2026, I think, is a really big inflection point. Because you could say, Dabo being you, Dabo could say all he wants to about his career, and no one's pushing back on it. Dabo could even paint the last few years however he wants to. But the bottom line is, if you have 2 consecutive 7-win seasons, or maybe this year's worse than last year, like if that were to happen, no one cares. No one cares. It's bottom line business, man. No one cares about what you did in 2018. And it would probably be ugly. And I'm not doing the hot seat thing. I'm saying just the conversation around it, maybe the well would get poisoned a little bit. So it's a big year this year. Let's move on. The non-football question here. First off, let me tell you, they're watching us in Livingston, Texas. I wanted to get that out of the way. Corbin, Kentucky, and Stillwater, Minnesota. First time check-in from a town that I did not know existed, but now I do, and it sounds lovely. Big Don said, what have you been watching or listening to this year? Anything worth recommending? From Woburn, Massachusetts, Prez? Does that sound right? Yeah, okay. I watched Game of Thrones for the first time ever. Big Don. That's what I did. I just finished it. 2 weeks ago. I just finished it. And obviously, I'm not going to spoil it. You know, it's only been out 15 or so years. So I'm not going to spoil it for anyone. Here's where I am with Game of Thrones. Many of you are probably like this. When something becomes popular, but you're not on the front end of it, you kind of resist joining the crowd. There's no logical reason behind it, but that's how I was with Game of Thrones. So I did not watch it when it originally aired. But I heard the commentary. Like I knew about the adjacent opinions of the show, because that's how big it was. So I knew the running sort of commentary on it was the first few seasons are some of the best TV ever made. Then maybe it dips a little bit, but everybody had a problem with the last season and the way it ended, or at least from what I could tell. So I watched it with a clean conscience, like I'm going to judge this for what it is to me. I got to tell you, I was not all that outraged by the last season. If you let me fantasy book it, there may be some things I would change, but I didn't get the outrage. The outrage seemed to me to be like on a 9 or 10 societally. And it was like a 4 for me. I wasn't outraged at all. Savannah State was mad. It was her second time watching it, though. I just wasn't all that mad. I watched all of the Women's College World Series. Like, softball is awesome. College softball is incredible. It is my second favorite sport to watch. I kid you not. I'm not just saying that to sound cool. I've told Jesse this for years. But now I feel like college softball's really exploded. This is my Game of Thrones. The Women's College World Series is my Game of Thrones. Because I've known how great it is for a long time, and now the rest of the world is finding out. And remember, when we were sitting down with DeBoer in Tuscaloosa earlier this spring, Texas was in town to play Alabama. And so we go over to Rhodes Stadium after we sit down with DeBoer, and we watch Texas-Alabama. I think it was like number 1 versus number 2 in the country. Tegan Cavan's on the mound for Texas. She mows Alabama. And even though Bama ended up taking the series, I thought Texas looked like the best team in the country. Texas goes on to win the Women's College World Series, and Tegan Cavan just turns into an assassin. And so she was like my adopted pitcher. Texas was kind of my adopted team this year. It was awesome. I watched the ending of Euphoria. That's all I have to say about that. Music. Ella Langley's just crushing it right now. It's Ella Langley and then the rest of the world right now. The German tourist, Freddie, got to meet her. Big deal for both parties. I will also say, anytime anyone has asked me for a recommendation about series or TV shows, I always go to the same one. I have touted this show for, Jesse, 3 years now. It is amazing. I think it's Amazon that put it out. Amazon Prime put it out. Daisy Jones and the Six remains the best new show that I have seen in several years. Awesome. By the title, you can't tell what it's about. I thought it sounded like a superhero series. It's not. It's fictitious, but it is about a band in the 70s. And there are a lot of Fleetwood Mac themes mixed in, but it's awesome. It's unbelievable. They did a great job on it. It's only 1 season, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. The original music from the show. There's several songs from the show. Let Me Down and The River are my 2 favorites. Jesse's pretty big Honeycomb guy, as I recall. Yeah. Amazing. You'll listen to the songs and you'll say, wait, you're telling me these aren't number 1 hits from the 70s and 80s? No, they just made them up for the show. Also, it's the 25th anniversary of Almost Famous this year. So if any of you children have not seen Almost Famous, it's one of my top 5 movies of all time. Celebrate its 25th year anniversary. All right, we go. It's a great question, by the way. I feel like we went a lot of places there. Let's go back to college football, shall we? The mailbag's a dangerous place. We've been doing better or worse. So, Bradley, here's a good endpoint for you. I got 4 teams circled. Just trying to guess whether they're going to be better or worse this year than they were last year. Very simple game. Sometimes we nail it. Sometimes it is horrifically off base as we look back come December. But LSU was 7-5 this year. This seems pretty simple to me. They're going to be better this year than they were last year. They spent at a high level. Now, that alone is not a guarantee of anything, but there is crash potential here. I don't expect it, but let's just acknowledge it's a very volatile situation this year. So there could be an 11-1, there could be a 6-6, there could be a 10-2, there could be a 5-7, although unlikely that they bottom out at 5-7. But not every portal formula works. And we're still early enough to where like a lot of the outlier results in the portal era maybe haven't happened yet. So you just assume, boy, if we spend $40+ million, well, there is no bust potential. Yes, there is. It's just unlikely. But yes, there is. But there's also SEC championship potential if it all comes together. But yeah, I think they'll be better than 7-5 last year in the regular season. What about Penn State? This one's easy too. You can almost skip over this one. They were 6-6, 7-6 if you count the bowl game. That was, I'm looking at their schedule right now. Jesse, would you say 8-4 this year would be a bad year for Penn State? Yes. That would still be 2 wins removed from what they were last year. So they could underachieve this year significantly. Like if they go 7-5, that is a really, really bad debut for Matt Campbell. And it'd still be better than last year. Quarterback, check. Offensive line, think it's going to be pretty good. Skill position, that's a question. Seems like an evergreen storyline around Penn State football. Love the secondary. And I love the structure. I love the organization that's been brought in. So, yeah, Penn State better. Houston's tougher, though. If we go to the Big 12 here, Houston was 9-3 in the regular season last year. They were 10-3 with the bowl win. The arrow seems to be clearly pointing up on them. I'm very high on Houston this year. But if we're forecasting better, worse, I kind of got to make this one the one where I split the middle and I just go same. Connor Wegman's a solid quarterback. He's there again this year. They got 2 really good wide receivers, Amari Thomas and Trent Walker. And they're my sleeper team in this league, although they may not be a sleeper by the time the season starts. Huge week 3 game, I think. Yeah, week 3 at Texas Tech. Really, really big game there. Their 3 toughest games are all on the road. So that's why when I look at 9-3 and I'm high on them, I still say probably be about the same. Because Texas Tech, Kansas State, and Utah are all on the road. And offensive line is a question for this team. Corner is a little bit of a question for this team. But I trust the coaching staff there. They've got the 5th best odds to win this league right now at FanDuel. I've already bought some Houston. And I really like that Houston stock now that the tip of the spear at Texas Tech maybe seems a little less sharp than it did with Sorsby. And lastly, the Florida Gators were 4-8 last year. They're going to be better this year. If they can get past Long Island in week 1, they will be better this year. If you watch them practice right now, you would think it's a mirage. You would think it's fake news that they went 4-8 last year. Because if you watch them practice, they look like a top 10 team. They look like what you would expect a top 10 team to look like. And then you find out, oh, no, actually, this place just fired its head coach. No, they didn't even qualify for a bowl game last year. And what you would find out is that there's a little bit of context that's needed. And they got John Summerall in, and wide receiver is loaded, and running back is really, really good. Their front 7 could be one of the highest combined unit for units in the country this year. Quarterback OC, they brought in the combo package, Aaron Philo and Buster Faulkner from Georgia Tech. There is juice down there. So they're going to be better than 4-8. I don't know how much better, but they'll be better than 4-8. So what did we go? We went better, same, better. Not good. Not good. That's as square as it gets, but that's where I stand in June. Moving on. Jesse, actually, do me a favor. The whole commentary question, save that for the Thursday show. All my notes there. Yeah, save it for the Thursday show. Let's just go to bold predictions. Because we have to, you know how we have to end the show tonight. We're not ending the show with college football tonight. But we are doing bold predictions right now. Okay, bold predictions roll on in the middle of June. These are your predictions that I put a rating on. And anyone who rates 9.5 or higher on the boldness scale and hits will win a chalice supremacy at the end of the year. We gave away 3 last year out of I don't know how many dozen predictions. Let's start off with a very, very rare 10 on the 1 to 10 scale. Artem, am I seeing that right? It's very, very small text in here. Yeah, anyway, he predicted, luckily snagged Brigham Young before the news about Sorsby. Okay, so he's got a 4-pick parlay, which I frown upon. He's got Miami winning the ACC. He's got Brigham Young winning the Big 12. He's got Ohio State winning the Big 10. He's got Texas winning the SEC. $10 returns over $1,300 on that, by the way. This is a 10. Now, none of those singularly are crazy. You've just got to have all 4 of them hit. So Miami winning the ACC, well, that'd be my pick too. But then you've also got to have Ohio State win the Big 10. Now, Ohio State is the favorite in the Big 10, but Indiana exists. Oregon exists. And likewise, in the SEC, Texas is co-favored right now to win the SEC, but Georgia exists. So does Bama and LSU. And it's like half of the SEC theoretically could win the league. And Brigham Young, while their odds improved, they're still behind Texas Tech in the odds to win the Big 12. So all of these things happening. It's still a little bit long. I'm going to put a 10 on it. Next up, talk about first-year head coaches. I like this one. Pat from Omaha, Nebraska. More than one coach in their first year at the program will lead their team to the playoff. I put a 9.25 on this. So 8 of the top 9 teams in the odds to win the national title return their quarterback or return their head coach. But there are plenty of viable candidates here. Lane Kiffin, like if he made the playoff, that'd be one. James Franklin at Virginia Tech, leave that one up, Press, for a second. So Alex Golesh counts here. John Summerall counts here. Matt Campbell has a very, very workable schedule. He counts there. So out of all these guys, like Morgan Scalley, people kind of forget there's change at Utah. They remember there's change at Michigan, but remember there's also a change at Utah. I actually would put the over-under at 1.5 of these guys making it. So I don't think it's insane to say 2 or more make it. So I'm only going to make that 9.25. Next up, this one's going north of 9.5. Seth from Conroe, Texas. Texas A&M goes undefeated. Marcel Reed wins the Heisman. That's a 9.75. A&M's over-under win total is 8.5. Marcel Reed has the 12th best odds to win the Heisman. I'm just going to put it to you like this. Marcel Reed may improve this year. Hopefully he does. It takes consistent high-level play over the course of an entire season to win the Heisman. I don't think Marcel Reed is capable of playing at that caliber of a level for 12 games in a row. So, like C.J. Carr makes sense up there. Trinidad Chambliss, Darian Mensah, absolutely. Julian Say and Dante Moore, no problem. You put Marcel Reed in a conversation where he's going to surpass all of those guys, and I got problems seeing that. And A&M going 12-0 is tough too, because anyone going 12-0, especially in the SEC with how more competitively balanced it is tough. And their schedule is backloaded. So here's the crazy part about this. I could see a world where they get to like week 4. Let's say they beat LSU. And then they beat Arkansas and Missouri and Citadel, and you think, oh boy, that prediction that he put a 9.75 on, we're well on our way to it happening. And then it's at Bama, at South Carolina, Tennessee, at Oklahoma, Texas. No break. Well, there's a bye in there, but there is no gimme in between those games. And so it's a really backloaded schedule. So I'm going to put a 9.75 on that one. And let's round it out with this one. JP from Fresno, California said Evan Stewart and DeCorian Moore will both be 1,000-plus yard receivers this year. That's a 9.5, but both are capable. But remember, Evan Stewart's coming off injury. The reports are positive. DeCorian Moore last year, around 500 receiving yards. He should blow up this year. But Oregon did not have anybody over 700 total receiving yards last year. However, I do think with Dante Moore back, someone has to get there this year. But two someone's getting there, I find very difficult to envision, although not impossible, because they're also going to run the ball very effectively. So, because of that, I put a 9.5 on it. We have, 3 qualifiers tonight for Chalice of Supremacy. You can go, well, you can't quite go bet Decorian Moore over 1,000 yards receiving right now at FanDuel, but you can bet Oregon to win the Big Ten. FanDuel is the exclusive odds provider of our show. Happy to have them on board. The markets are plenty over there right now. I think you'd be surprised if you haven't paid a visit to the college football tab over there in a little while. You may be surprised at how many options there are. Do you remember back in the day, it wasn't that long ago, what did you have? You had some games of the year that came out. You had over-under win totals. That's it. And then it was a big like ticker tape parade celebration in August when you finally saw the week 1 point spreads out. And now it's like, dude, they've been out. And you got several games of the year out. And you got all kinds of different odds just to make or not make the playoff. And so there's a lot to see over at FanDuel. That's, by the way, if you don't bet, which many of you don't, I think it's fascinating to just go look at what the odds market says. Most of the time when I look over there, it's not even to place a bet. So I did grab some Houston to win the Big 12, though. So FanDuel, the exclusive odds provider of the show. Now we get to the most important part of the show, arguably, tonight. John from Garrison, Kentucky said, I saw you had a tornado on video. What was that like? Absolutely amazing, John. Thank you for asking. Jesse didn't ask. Mitch didn't ask. Bradley didn't. But John asked. I would say Prez didn't ask, but he was there. Prez's first tornado ends up being an EF3 in the middle of Effingham, Illinois. Okay, so when we did our Tuesday show, we got done. We shot up north. We stayed in Champaign, Illinois. Did not see Coach Brett, but we stayed in Champaign, Illinois. And throughout the day, we saw a lot of incredible structure. Like this right here looks like a spaceship. But we thought we were about to bust. Frankly, we were in good position. We were with Brad Arnold, chasing with him. He's over there in the passenger seat. I don't trust anyone else to drive me in these situations, so I'm driving myself. I'm an award-winning driver. And so we were in good position multiple times, and it just didn't happen. And my great fear was that we were going to bust. And Prez was with us last month in Missouri, and we busted in Missouri. And like Mimo always said, man, once you bust in Missouri, you can't be busting in Illinois too. And then it happened. Tornado-warned storm, and we had to dodge 2 suicidal deer. And we got ourselves into, I believe it's Dietrich, Illinois, and then we cut north. So obviously that's a tornado on the ground. Check out the sunset behind the tornado. We couldn't have planned it. It's just we got this delivered to us personally from God himself. And then we have a decision to make, Jesse. Can we get to it? Yes, we can. So we're headed north right there. And then we turn due west. And we're facing it. And it's really good. I mean, it's confirmed on the ground, got a good debris cloud under that. It's coming kind of through Effingham, Illinois right there. It's headed towards us. And so we turn down a road. And, it's headed pretty much due east. And we're going due west. But there is a slight southerly jog to that thing. And so we know eventually it's going to cross the road we're on. And we've got to make a decision. Are we going to floor it past it, or are we going to hang back? And we made our decision to floor it past it. This did require us to drive through the outer circulation of this tornado. So we had to drive through a little bit of an outer debris field. Felt okay. We could clearly see the base of it out there in that field there. But we got past it. And we did a 3-point turn. And I'm going to put an entire video out right when the show goes off tonight, by the way. It's like 8.5 or 9 minutes of our full chase. These are just clips from it. But we drive past that tornado, and we 3-point turn it around. And, Prez, do you have the picture from the field? When we turn it around, that right there is what's behind us. It had just leveled a barn. It was in the process of heavily damaging a house. I think it kind of sideswiped the house, too. I don't think the house took a direct hit. These power lines are in the process of being pulled down. So debris hitting the side of our car. And we were like probably, I'd say 50, 75 yards from the base of that tornado. And man, we saw a lot of insane things. We saw a lot of terrible things. The one thing that I did want to say, for a lot of you who were watching the live stream that are new to this, it's an adrenaline rush like you wouldn't believe. But when we come back in behind it, there are a million things happening. And then one of the things that we're out there to do is anytime you see someone's house get hit, or anytime you see like damage to property, it's on you to make sure that everyone's okay. So we see a house, I'm talking about swept clean off the foundation, that you couldn't see on the camera because we were like in the process of turning the car around. So the dash camera's facing that way, but I had looked out my passenger's window and I saw it take that structure, pull it off its foundation, and then obliterate it in that order. Someone was in there. So we had to come back around, and you'll see on the video that I upload after the show tonight, we cannot go down the road any further because there's power line damage. Okay, so our protocol, just to give you an idea, is we have about 10 other chasers that we're in constant walkie-talkie communication with. So we knew that there were several guys on the other side of this tornado from us. So when we turned our car back around, the house that had been leveled, there were 3 other chasers that were already there. So we knew that that house had help. Otherwise, our chase is done, and we're out immediately, and we're checking to see if there's anybody that needs help in that house. The protocol for us is if we know one or multiple chasers are already there to help out, that tornado was still on the ground. So then we go back in behind it. It ended up dissipating, but for all we know, it's about to go hit another town. So for those of you who are asking questions about why don't you immediately jump out and help, they already had help. That's why we didn't jump out and help. And we knew the proximity of other chasers, because otherwise, I've been in that situation many times where there isn't anyone else and your chase is done and you jump out and you help. But it was amazing. As I speak with you, there is an ongoing tornado outbreak in the exact same areas of Illinois and Indiana. So it's a serious thing. I don't want to make light of it, but just from a pure fascination with atmospheric science perspective, that's my spring hobby. That's what we do. And Prez came along, and his first tornado ends up being rated an EF3 tornado. And he stayed calm, cool, and collected. Just kept the camera on it the entire time. That is our show. As far as I know, we got a normal schedule this week. So as far as I know, we'll be back Thursday. And that's about it. So appreciate you guys. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you haven't already. For Director Bradley, for Producer Jesse, I'm Josh Pate. Take care. Have a great start to your week, and God bless.